This is The Playground, and my name is Eddie Flewellen. I'm your host, and this is a rather special edition of The Playground because the guest that I have today, I'm truly honored, as always with all my guests, I'm especially honored that Akili Nickson, lead vocalist of Switch, by the way, but little known fact that his day job is attorney for the city of Los Angeles. And I'm not going to screw this up by any chance as far as introduction. So Akili, I'm going to leave it to you to explain what it is that you do before we go into why this is special for me. And this should be special for anybody that listens. You're on, brother. Thanks,
my brother. So, yeah, so even though I sing with Switch and
very well, by the way. Anyway.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Eddie. I've been balancing two careers for a while. And so during the day, I'm an attorney, I'm a prosecutor. Eddie's right, I was a prosecutor for the city of LA for a long time. But for the last few years, I've been a prosecutor for the state of California. And
okay, I'm sorry. So you graduated. I love it.
So I have these two careers, and it's kind of cool how they intersect because, you know, music and law in a lot of ways go hand in hand. So we kind of thought it was cool to come on here and talk about some of that stuff.
Thank you. And like I said, I'm really glad you could do this. And for those who've seen Switch, I mean, we've seen you at the front of the stage and all that. And I was trying to figure out a way that was like, besides Switch, that we could have you on. And again, I thought, oh, that's right. Duh, his day job, working for the state of California. My bad. I'm so sorry. So, and this shows how focused we are on the Switch things that we do. But this is like I said, this is going to be special for me. And when I spoke to Akili, I asked him as far as like some music law, some questions that maybe I can ask him that, you know, people that are coming up in the business might ask, and questions that I've thought about over the years and all that. And Akili was so gracious enough to say, hey, let's go. So again, thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Oh, awesome. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start. I had sent Akili these questions, so, you know, he kind of had a chance to kind of look them over and all that. So we'll just start right from the beginning. The first question I did ask, when should a band or even a soloist hire a manager or even a personal lawyer? Are they both the same? Are they different?
Cool.
Yeah, so at the beginning, they formed and, you know, hey, okay, we're getting good. We need to have some representation.
Really, really good question. And so before I say that, let me just say this to everyone out there. So I cannot and will not give any specific legal advice. So if you have a contract, if you have an agreement, if you have something that you need a lawyer for, you still need a lawyer. You cannot rely on what I tell you as legal advice, and I'll do my best not to be too specific about anything. And I will just say one more thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm a lawyer, I'm a prosecutor, but I have been singing for a long time. And when I was in law school, I took music law, I took entertainment law.
Okay, good.
And when I finished the class, I always knew, this is a little weird, but I knew that when I graduated, I wasn't going to practice entertainment law. I knew that. I knew that I was going to do something else. I was going to go on to be a litigator, but I still wanted to know music law. Like, I wanted to know how to protect myself. I wanted to know how the business works. Mm-hmm. And so this is a quick little background story. I'll try to do it in 30 seconds. So there's a very, very prominent lawyer in the Bay Area where I'm from. Very prominent lawyer in Oakland. His name is Michael Ashburn. Hey, Michael, if you're watching this, what's up, man?
Awesome.
Michael, who has represented, when I say everyone, I mean everyone from Lauryn Hill to Boyz II Men to Roberta Flack, just a very, very well-known, well-respected entertainment industry attorney and all-around good guy. And I went to Michael's house one day, went to his door. I didn't know him. It's a true story. Mm-hmm. I knocked on his door, cold knocked on his door. He answers the door, he opens the door. And I say, hi, sir. My name is Akili Nickson. I'm a law student at Hastings. And I'd like to work for you. And I was in school at the time. Mm-hmm. I said, I really want to learn the entertainment industry, and I will work for you for free. And I already have a job lined up after school with Morrison & Foerster. Then I'm going to clerk with the Ninth Circuit, and I'm, you know, this rank in my class. But I want to learn music. If you'll let me, can I come work for free? And Michael was like, yeah.
Well, duh.
Yeah. Right. So I actually went and I worked with Michael for absolutely free. And what I got out of that is I actually learned the business. I learned a lot of this stuff that I knew, I didn't want to practice as a career, but I wanted to know for my own sense of knowledge. I wanted to be able to protect myself as a young singer at the time. And so that's kind of my background when it comes to music stuff. I learned the ropes from Michael Ashburn. And then when I came to LA, Michael put me in touch with Virgil Roberts, who a lot of people know, former president of Solar Records, brilliant industry lawyer. Michael actually introduced me to Virgil when I came to LA. And so strangely enough, I have this weird thing where although I'm a prosecutor, I work for the state of California, I've always had my toe dipped in the entertainment industry. So I would know what was going on the law side of the business. A little weird.
How long did you work for Michael?
Gosh, man, probably like a year.
Okay. I mean, so this was not like fly by night. I mean, this was not like just a whim. I mean, you went to work for him.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Like a year. And just learning everything I could. He'd have me researching this or drafting that or writing. Just what a great guy who let me just shadow him and work for him. And he and I are still very, very good friends today.
Good.
So it's kind of cool. So that's why I have this interesting background. So that's.
Okay. You know what? Now that we're there, then, and I was going to say this to the end, but I know I'm going to forget on the end, so I'm going to ask you now. So, can you speak on without mentioning any names or artist names or whatever? Can you speak on any particular instance that you had to deal with, whether it be positive or negative? Can you speak on any of that?
Yes. So I mean, I have worked on legal matters.
Oh, and by the way, I didn't forget the first question. We'll come back to the first question. But anyway, since we're there.
Yes, I have worked on legal matters. It's what happens when things go wrong. Mm-hmm. I have worked on matters that have involved, so I will say this, there was a very large legal dispute that arose out of an event in Las Vegas, Eddie, in your home.
Of course.
Pretty big concert out there that involved everyone and their mom, members of the group Aerosmith, George Benson, Neo, Bruno Mars. Just half of the industry was involved in a very, very large event. And it was
okay. And because of the people that you mentioned, this is rather recent.
I'll just say it was huge. It was a big event.
Okay.
And yeah, very recent, rather recent, very, very large event. And as a result of the event, a lot of litigation arose out of it, and I worked directly on that case. I worked. That was just a few years ago. I worked.
Were you what they refer to as the lead attorney?
I actually was the lead attorney on that case.
Hey,
and that was kind of.
You notice I got that right? So,
yeah.
He was the lead.
That was rare for me. Yeah, and it was fun because you don't get to do the kind of fun stuff in my world. I'm doing a lot of fraud stuff, and but that was kind of really, really fun because at the heart of it all were just hardcore legal issues involving contracts, involving a lot of things. But beneath the legal stuff was just really fun entertainment industry issues involving all these artists, and I probably only named like half of them that were involved because this was a massive, massive concert. Kind of like, how it is, Eddie, how like, a Switch does a show and there's like 20 artists on the bill.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
It's some massive concert and there's like, 20 or 30 or 15 artists. Imagine something like that happening at the end of the day, just the whole thing ends up in litigation. Everybody's, so so I very recently worked on a case involving a lot of, I'd say A-list acts.
So repeat that part again, it was?
Yeah, so pretty recently I worked on something that involved a lot of A-list acts. Some of my favorite groups in the world, in fact. So,
awesome.
I mean, the Jacksons were involved. Yeah, the Jacksons.
Are you serious?
I mean, everybody was involved.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, interesting case. Interesting case that the artists they do what they do. They're there to perform and do a good job, but behind the scenes, there's things going on with the promoters, with the artist managers, with producers of the show. And when things don't go right, lawsuits happen. And
And
Exactly.
and for those that are listening, I'm kind of pretending like I don't know what he's talking about, but good Lord, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong and all that. Needless to say, I mean, things go right, but boy, when they go wrong, do they go wrong? And that's when the phone calls come to people such as Akili. Or you're probably standing off in the wings anyway, waiting, right?
Yeah, I usually know when it's coming. A lot of
got
times.
you.
A lot
Got
of
you.
times you know when it's coming.
Okay. So going back to the first question then, if a band forms or if you're a solo artist, whatever, at what point in your career, I mean, I know it's at the beginning, but you know, when do you start looking I guess legally is the right word. When you start thinking, okay, I need to start looking at legal representation here?
Yeah, so the way I would generally answer that is, so for everyone out there who makes music, sings, performs in a band, although most people probably think of themselves as a professional, you may not all be professionals. The reality is there's a lot of people that do music, they're hobbyists. And if you're a hobbyist and you just enjoy playing your guitar at home, then the expense of getting representation may not make a whole lot of sense if you're just a hobbyist and you're just playing, for your wife. There comes a time when your hobby becomes a profession.
Right.
When you go from being a hobbyist to being a professional. And you'll usually know when that is when you start getting paid. So the first time someone hears you at your cousin's bar mitzvah and, and they tell you, I want to be in business with you in some way, and here's how I want to split the money.
Okay. Now they tell you as a lawyer, as legal representation.
As an artist, I mean, as just an artist. The first time as an artist, after you've got off the stage at your cousin's bar mitzvah, or you've just finished playing at your school band, or you're a hobbyist right now, you're having fun. But the first time someone comes along and says, we can make some money. I want to do a deal with you, and here's how we're going to split the money. The first time it is apparent that there is going to be some money involved, and how that money gets divided depends on some agreement. It's time to call a lawyer. Time to call a lawyer. Because how money gets divided, whether it's royalties or there's a million ways to make money in this industry, but how that money gets divided is always going to be pursuant to some agreement, some deal, some contract. And the odds are always going to be high that the person on the other end of that deal knows more than you do. The odds are always high that that person on the other end of that deal knows more than you. And all you want to do is make sure that when you enter into that deal, you are protected. And I know it sounds crazy, like, you haven't sold any records yet. You're not rich yet. In fact, you're not rich at all. You don't have anything yet.
Right.
All you
and I was just going to mention, just at the word lawyer, just at the word attorney, you're thinking dollars. You're thinking dollars that are going out,
exactly.
that I don't have.
Exactly. You haven't made a penny yet. You're just you're Akili Nickson in Oakland, and you haven't made one dime from music yet. But someone has come to you and said, if this works out, we're going to be rich. I promise you. If what you do next is not the right thing, that guy's right. If it works out, somebody's going to be rich. He's right. If it works out, someone will be rich, but it won't be you. If that is not the moment when you get someone involved who knows what they are doing to make sure that in the event this is successful, this agreement will protect me. I promise you the agreement will not protect you. It's just a unique thing about the music industry. Music industry is not like TV. It's not like movies. All these other fields where the unions are a lot more powerful and the practices are different. In the music industry, it truly is the Wild West. There's no one to protect you. It's the only industry where you will go into an agreement with somebody thinking that you both are going to be rich. You will succeed. You'll succeed. In fact, y'all will make $20 million.
Mhm.
They'll get all of it. You'll get a bill.
True.
Not only will you not make any money, they're going to tell you that of this 20 million we just made, you owe me some money.
Right, right.
It,
So
it
true.
is a brutal, brutal business. And so I would say, when do you get a lawyer? I would tell anyone, and my friends ask me this stuff all the time. I
Mhm.
always say, the first time that someone comes to you with an agreement, and that agreement is gonna determine how money is gonna be split, you should talk to a lawyer. And lawyers aren't expensive as you think. So
They're not.
no, they're not
Oh,
as
wow.
expensive as you think.
Okay.
So we
That's
all,
good to know.
yeah,
Mhm.
we all think that we're gonna have to walk in the door and pay someone, a boatload of money for,
Right.
a simple contract, but that's really just not true.
Mhm.
And that, every attorney is different, and attorneys will work with artists
Mhm.
to work out something that is manageable. And I remember one time, this is a true story. I've had a couple things going on in my life. One involves music with Switch. Other things involve television. I was working on a show, and I had a contract, and I was being offered some things, and I didn't know anything about the TV industry. It's a very, very
Okay.
different industry.
Right.
And I was shooting it. Anyways, and I remember calling an attorney, and he's very prominent, well-known attorney.
Mhm.
I won't say his name, except I'll say this. He was actually Switch's lawyer early on in your career.
Now you're gonna make me think.
True story. And
Okay.
I didn't know it at the time.
Uh-huh,
I actually didn't
uh-huh.
know it. Greg told me this later. Greg told me, oh yeah, that was our lawyer. I didn't even know it.
Greg Williams. Mhm.
And I called the attorney. I said, I need help with something. He goes, well, what's your timeline? I said, well, it's like tomorrow. I'll never forget this attorney talked to the other side, threw together a term sheet, threw together a contract in no time, just in no time.
Mhm.
And it wasn't what we call a long form contract. It was a
Mhm.
term sheet. It was to make sure that all sides knew what the general parameters of the deal would be. Something you could agree to pretty quickly.
Wow.
The
Okay.
long form, that comes later.
Mhm.
And I remember he threw that together so quick and charged me, honestly, what was close to nothing to really
Wow.
make sure I was
Wow.
protected. And I remember I thought it would cost so much. It cost close to nothing. In that instance, that attorney was interested in the relationship.
Mm.
He
Okay.
wanted to make sure he had me as a client,
Got you. Got you.
or other things that were going to be. He wanted a relationship, and so
Right.
to get that relationship started, he charged me almost nothing for something that
Wow.
he put together in no time. He threw it together. And
So,
yeah.
so in your experience, then, I mean, even in the beginning, in your experience, like most of the attorneys that you dealt with, because I'm thinking now, I'm sorry, before now, the attorneys, lawyers, I mean, just the word is, it's already intimidating.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And like you said before, I'm already thinking, okay, money's going to go out. And your experience, is it like that at all? Are they pretty much like open door, like, hey, come on in, let's sit down and talk? Or
Every attorney I know are the coolest people I know.
oh, wow,
And
okay.
so when I was younger, when I thought of an attorney, I thought of, I don't want to sound, racist, but I thought of an old white guy in
Mhm.
this smoke-filled building
Hmm.
with mahogany desks.
Hmm.
And I was going to walk in and
Big cigar.
big cigar. That's right. And as soon as I walk in the door, I got to just hand down some big wad of money.
Right.
The
right.
reality is, that's just not true. The reality is a lot of the attorneys out there, they are just regular down-to-earth people who've been in the business a long time. Look, they know you just started. They know you don't have nothing. They know you haven't had any success yet. They know all that. And just as much as you want to be protected, they want to protect you too.
Okay.
And so they want to find a way that they can protect you in a way that's economical and that makes sense for both of you guys. They'll work with you. Every attorney I know will work with you and make sure that at the end of the day, it's a win-win for everybody. They really will. And
so quick question. I'm sorry, real quick question. Since we're there, even on the initial call, okay, I have a lawyer or somebody recommended a lawyer or whatever. I have an initial call. does the clock start at the call, or is there like a conversation? Well, listen, Mr. Nickson, this is what I do. This is what I want to do. Can you help me? At what point does the clock start? And do you
every
start?
attorney is different.
Okay.
Every attorney is different. So some attorneys, they charge what's called a consultation fee, and they do that because they know that their time is not free, and what you really need is not. Depends on what the issue is. Sometimes you don't need me to draft a contract for you. Sometimes you don't need me to negotiate something on your behalf. Sometimes all you need is just some advice. All you need is a little bit of guidance. And sometimes for me to give you that guidance, it's not going to take a lot of time. So some attorneys will charge like a small consultation fee just to be able to come in and have that initial consultation where you get an exchange of information.
Okay.
Because their time itself is not free. Then there are other attorneys that have a completely different business model. There are other attorneys that initial consultation, they're not going to charge you for that.
Okay. That's more the relationship build?
Yeah, it's not their business model. Because if they're not going to take the case, they're not interested. If they're not going to bring you on as a client, they're not going to charge you.
Okay.
There is no consultation fee. That depends on, a lot of times, what it is you're talking to a lawyer about and that lawyer's particular business model. And every attorney has a different business model. I've seen both. I've seen, when I was in private practice, we didn't charge for consultation fees. And sometimes we would put in significant work just to decide if we were going to take a client, sometimes. And we did that work for free if we didn't take that client. But if we ended up getting that client and doing the work, it was more than worth the effort that we put in up front.
Excellent. Okay.
And so it all depends. Every attorney is different. Sometimes they'll charge for consultation, sometimes they won't. Every lawyer is different.
Okay. Okay. The differences between, and I'm sure there are obvious differences between a music attorney and a personal manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, who is over who in that relationship? Or are we just talking about two totally different subjects here?
Totally different things.
Okay.
So the titles can sometimes, people think the titles can be more important than the job. And it's not true. So in this industry, there are very, very powerful lawyers.
Okay.
There are also very, very powerful managers.
Exactly.
There are also very, very powerful agents.
Thank you. Okay.
Also, and so how that
and the agent and the manager are different.
Totally different.
Wow.
So
Okay.
how that balance of power plays itself out really depends on who you have for your representation. And so, but their jobs are I want to say, the jobs are different. There are different jobs, but I can't say who is more powerful because power doesn't come from a title. It comes from your ability to help your client achieve their goals. And sometimes, there are managers that have the ability to help their clients achieve their goals with a phone call. There are lawyers that can help their clients achieve their goals with a phone call. What we call like pressing the button. There are people that can press the button for you, depending on what it is you're doing and their relative level of power. So managers are really, really important because, you need an attorney because you should not enter into any agreement without one. Okay. You also need a manager because it is really hard to be spending the bulk of your time devoted to your art and the bulk of your time devoted to how to promote your art. Those are really different things. Can one person do both? Theoretically. But I think if you are an artist, you would probably be better served by allowing someone who has mastered the business
Uh-huh. Mhm.
Let them handle the business.
Got
I mean,
it. Got it.
I don't
got
want to. I don't ever want to insult anyone. I don't ever want me to think I'm saying the artists aren't smart or anything like
it.
that.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
but it's good to have someone who knows the ins and outs. They know where all the bodies are buried. They know where all the, it's like the music industry is like, it's full of trap doors. Like, those video games, was it Donkey Kong? Where you'd be running, all the, boom, you'd be down the floor, right? Like a video game. One minute you're running, next thing, boom, you're in the industry's full of those, right? And a good manager, he knows where they are long before you see them. Before you see them. You guys are running together, and he's like, all right, avoid that. There's a big trap door right there. Oh, and by the way, let's not do this. There's a shortcut if we go behind the street.
And again, you say this is the manager.
Manager, yeah.
Okay.
And really bright, powerful, experienced lawyers oftentimes have a wealth of knowledge as well.
Okay.
A wealth of knowledge as well. But when you're starting your career, you don't yet have any agreement to negotiate, let's say. You're good at what you do. You're a good singer, you're a good musician, you're good at what you do. No one else knows yet. And you want to let people know, you want to get to the right people, you want to get your name out there, you want to make the right relationships, manager is instrumental in helping you go from Billy, the best drummer in the world that no one's heard because he's in his garage, versus Billy, the drummer who's on all these records. A good manager can make all the world of difference between taking someone who's a great artist and making sure the world knows you're a great artist. Got
it. So, and you mentioned earlier, like when we were talking about the two, you mentioned agent. Now, how is an agent different from a manager in what way?
So there's certain things only licensed agents can do, actually. So California law, so in today's world, we used to live in a world where musicians were musicians, singers were singers. That's just not really true today. Today, the entertainment industry is there's a lot of crossover, between what you hear and what you see, and between what goes on records and what happens on TV and what happens on YouTube and what happens on Netflix and what happens. There's just a lot of interplay. And when you are when you are dealing with the world of the television medium or movies and again, today they just go hand in hand. That oftentimes is the province. It is very difficult to get in commercials or television shows or movies. It's very, very difficult to do those things without agents. Very, very difficult. It's happened. There's some exceptions to that business model, right? I mean, for a long, long time, maybe even still today, like Jamie Foxx didn't have an agent, right? He had a manager. He had a different model, different business model. So there's exceptions to that rule, but as a general rule, everyone who's been trying to break into TV and film, and everyone who's taken that road knows that one of the first things you need to do is get the services of a very good agent, and that's hard to do. It's very hard to do. In California, it used to be the Wild West. It used to be the total Wild West, and unfortunately, a lot of people were getting robbed, and so the city of LA really led the effort to get state law changed so that agents had to be licensed. And so in California, agents have to be licensed. And so, and that's good for everybody. That's good for everybody. It protects everyone involved. So
is an agent more geared to like the movies and television as opposed to music, or?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So a musician or a band would not hire an agent. They would hire a manager. Would I say that right?
Typically. And I always say that there are exceptions to all these rules.
Right.
But typically in the music industry, you deal with managers. And typically in film and television, you deal with agents.
And they both do they generally do the same thing depending on the career, or?
That's a great question. So an agent's job, right, is to procure employment, right?
Oh,
Procure employment.
Mhm.
And like I said, you need to be licensed in California to be an
Mhm.
agent to
Mhm.
procure employment for your
Mhm.
client. A manager's job in the music industry is much more than just to try to land you gigs or to get you auditions. In the music industry, a manager's job is really a a what's the perfect word I'm looking for? It's that person who is helping to guide your career,
Mm.
helping to guide your career from wherever you are to wherever you want to be. A manager
Okay.
helps you do that. And in the television and film world, agents do that too. And so there is some overlap, but
Mhm.
if you are thinking, sitting in your garage, you make music, you make beats, you're a rapper, you're a singer, and you're in the music industry, and you're thinking, man, I really need someone to help me break into the industry. That typically will be a manager. That typically will be a manager.
Mhm.
If you are in television and film, and you're like, man, I really need that person to help me get auditions that can, get me on all the casting calls. That's typically going to be an agent.
Oh, okay.
In film. So they typically are
Gotcha.
two very different people.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, this is awesome. This is awesome. As far as protection now, getting into like whether you're a solo artist or a band, as far as protecting your name, what are the steps involved in that, or do you even look at that? Especially as a solo artist, do you look at protecting your name as a solo artist in the beginning? And I guess as far as a band as well, where do you look at protecting the name?
That's great. So I would not advise. So maybe because I'm a lawyer, I'm biased. I might have bias on this.
Okay.
So there are two different things most people need to protect, and that is your name and your mark, your logo. Because in the music industry,
and your logo.
those kind of go hand in hand, right?
Mhm.
Like switch is not just the word switch.
Mhm.
It's the mark.
It is the logo. You're right.
Right? And when you think of like Journey, or you think about, as quick as I think of the group, I think about their logo. It's just right away. And those are really two different things.
If I can share a story, since we're talking about that, you're talking about like how important the logo is, and you know this. On Switch's first two albums, that logo was right there. On the third album, Reaching for Tomorrow, the logo changed, and people had a lot of questions about that. So is this Switch? Did they what's going on here?
Yeah.
And for those that don't know, I mean, that's the album that's got like the moon on the cover, the blue album cover, and the Switch logo is like entirely different. And then we returned back, and that's, I say we, actually the record company decided, okay, we better put the other logo back on there. Album sales were affected by that. The fact that there was no album, the fact that there was no photo on that album cover.
That's right.
Album sales were truly affected. So I'm glad you brought that up, because the logo does make a difference. And once you find one, stick with it, because if you change it, oh boy,
That's right.
It's the same. It's the same word. It sounds the same, but just that picture of the logo is like, it plays a huge part. And I'm a witness to that. I'm glad you brought that up.
That's right. Because it's identifiable, right? Like you identify.
Like you said, your brand. That's part of your brand.
Your brand. You identify this group with this logo. So it is possible for anyone out there to. So when it comes to the name, right? When you're dealing with the name, that's trademark. When you're dealing with the logo, that's copyright. It's possible.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. Go back. Repeat that part again. That just flew by me. The name is a trademark.
Name is a trademark. Logo is a copyright.
Okay.
So
please explain the difference.
So
I'm glad you brought that up. That is a great point.
So
I'm sure you've seen that where people think that's one and the same, and it's not.
Well, I would.
Or
think
is it?
They're not the same. So they're both either U.S. Copyright Office. I mean, so the office for the United States that handles that, the U.S. Copyright and Trademark Office, they're all do the same office, and they're all established by the U.S. Constitution. But they're not the same. A trademark and a copyright are not the same. And I would advise people. This is one of those times. I don't know if when you're still in your garage and you come up with a cute name, I don't know if that's when you get a lawyer. I probably wouldn't.
Mhm.
Usually this comes up when people are making records. It's usually when you're making a record, the label likes the name, the label tells you, oh, by the way, you can't use that name. Someone's already trademarked that name, right? You get that call,
Right.
and they go, yeah, you love your name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's another group out there with that name, and you don't know it because they're in country.
Right.
And they're in country, and they've sold 1 million records, and you got to come up with something new, and you're like, oh, man.
Right. And we did go through that.
And so if you want to know how this plays out in the real world, it actually just happened. There's a very famous group called Lady Antebellum. So, look it, I get it. Their name can be offensive. I'm Black, obviously. I know the connotation of the word antebellum. But if you're gonna tell me you don't like their music, something is wrong. I love Lady Antebellum, right?
So do I.
I love their music.
Yes.
And I bought it. And so on their own, they decided.
What did they change their names to, by the way?
Lady A is what.
Lady A. Okay.
So they decided they wanted to be more sensitive, and be respectful for all their fans. So they took Antebellum out of their name and changed it to Lady A. Problem is, there's already someone named Lady A that I had never heard of.
Wow.
That you may not have heard of. That is in a different area of music. She's not a country singer. I'm not that familiar with their music, so I can't tell you what she's singing. Someone, and they're going at it now. They're loggerheads now.
Wow. Interesting.
And I don't know how that's going to play out. So here's my advice to people. When the time comes when you're about to get a record deal or sign a record deal, or you're about to put out an album, when you think you are no longer a hobbyist, you are now a professional, and you want to protect your name, you can get a lawyer for that. That is not hard. It is not complicated. A lawyer will handle the copyright for your logo. They will handle the trademark for your name. That is something I would consider on the 1 to 10 hard list. 1. It's not very hard. They'll make sure. They'll do a search and make sure that no one else out there has already registered that mark. They'll make sure no one else has registered that. That is not a hard thing to do for an attorney who knows how to do it. It's very easy. But I would not advise people to do those kind of things themselves, because you don't want to mess that up.
I was gonna say, you don't want to screw that up.
Yeah, and make sure you want to protect your name and your logo if you have a logo.
Got it. It's kind of interesting though too. Now that we're there, I'm going through my list of questions and we're like hitting on that one thing as far as protection. Copyright.
Yes.
At when should you consider copywriting like your, and I'm talking songs specifically here.
Great
first
question.
of all, copyright by definition is?
So your ownership interest in the intellectual property and the composition.
Okay, now does he sound like an attorney or what? Does he sound like a lawyer? Okay, so now you got to come back and break that down.
So
every once in a while I got to catch Akili. He's like, okay, dude, you sound like a lawyer now. So talk to me in English now. And you just did it right there and then. So my favorite line from the movie Philadelphia. Okay, now talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
Got it. When you are a songwriter and you create something, there's a number of things that are created. Actually, you've created a number of things. You've created this beautiful song, you've recorded this song, and you've created a bundle of rights. And I am of the paranoid school of copyright thought. The paranoid school says, so let me back up and say this. The second you create a song, you own the copyright. So that part's easy. So copyright law, under the Copyright Act of 1976, the second you create a law, it's yours. Not a law, blah, blah. The second you create a song.
Well, that too.
Second you create a song, it's yours. You comes out of your head. As soon as it's fixed in a medium, you create it, you hum the melody into your phone. As soon as that creation is fixed, it's yours. You own the copyright. But that copyright is not registered. And so, as you know, I write a lot as well. So usually, when do I do the copyright? Immediately. So there's two things. There's a copyright in in the composition. There's a copyright in the sound recording. Those are two different things.
Ah, interesting.
And so, so I just wrote a song yesterday for a friend of mine, so to go into a soundtrack. And I wrote it. I did a scratch vocal here at home.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do a vocal tonight. That's an actual solid reference vocal for the artist who's gonna sing it. I'm gonna send it to him tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you something. Probably tonight when I'm done, I will probably fill out my copyright registration forms for the composition.
Mm-hmm.
I usually do that before I give the song to somebody else.
Understood.
Now, every lawyer might have a different approach to that,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm of the scary cat school
I
of
like
copyright.
that. Mm-hmm.
So as soon as I write a song and I fix that song in the medium, as soon as it's created and fixed, I usually register that copyright in the composition.
Okay.
I do that immediately.
Okay. Okay.
There are reasons why I do that. Because now if I don't register it, if you steal it, I'm gonna still sue you. Don't get me wrong. I still own the copyright. But there are different remedies available for register. But anyway, so I register that.
And like you said, you still, if you decide to steal it, you still own that copyright by virtue of the fact that you wrote the song in the first place.
That's right.
Got you. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. Like imagine you built a house.
Mhm.
I went out and I got some wood and I built a house.
Mhm.
Well, it's my house. I built it.
Mhm.
Right? But I still need a deed. I need something that makes it like official. So the government in the world knows I own this house.
Got it.
So I got to go down to the county and I got to do a thing with the building and safety where I give them the plot of the house. Okay, this is the house. This is the house. Okay, you own the deed. So I have a piece of paper that allows me to more easily enforce my rights in that house.
More easily.
Right? So more easily enforce my rights in that house. I have a deed in my hand. So the song that I wrote for my buddy, and I already recorded it in Logic and laid it, I already own the copyright.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to know that before I have shared it with the world, I like to know that I have done what I need to do to make sure the government also knows that I own this composition.
Got it.
I created this composition and I own this composition, but that's different than the sound recording. So the sound recording, so there's two businesses in the music industry, the two big ones, right, are publishing and sound recordings. Record companies sell sound recordings and publishing companies monetize composition, right? So publishing companies, record companies. Record companies make money from sound recordings. Publishing companies make money from composition, right? Different things. So I've created a song. I've written a song. I automatically own the composition. There's still a sound recording. If I record that song at my house and it's going to be released on Akili Nickson record company, and I'm going to be releasing that sound recording, I will myself copyright that sound recording as well. Right? And now we're not just talking about hypos. We can even talk about Switch. Some of Switch's new songs, where we had to copyright the compositions and the sound recordings, two separate copyrights. Because Switch owns those sound recordings. There's no record company. But typically, if you have a record deal, the record company will own the sound recording, not you. The record company will be copywriting and owning that sound recording. You don't own that sound recording. The record company owns the sound recording. You might own the composition. You might not. You might have you might have entered into some deal where you oh, that's another Oprah. But
and just by definition, just so people know, when you talk about sound recording, you probably heard like in the past where people talk about their masters. Okay.
Yes.
And those are the sound recordings that you're referring to.
Yes.
They're called the masters. So when you hear that word, you know, red flags should go up. Oh, okay. So that's what you're talking about as far as sound recording.
Yes.
Anyway, continue.
It's the weirdest industry, man, because, you know, only the music industry, you know, it doesn't matter how powerful you are, you're still subject to the same unfair system. right? I mean, who's more powerful than Michael Jackson when he was alive, right? I mean, he was the most successful artist who ever lived. And do you remember when he was, walking around with horns? He had said Tommy Mottola was the devil. Remember the head of Sony?
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I mean, and then there was a time where Prince.
I was going to say Prince was the same.
People might argue and say Prince was more successful, but between those two, the two most successful people I can think of, they both, at the end of the day, had realized how unfair the system was. And Prince was walking around with the word slave.
With slave, yep.
Because here's a guy who had just made probably hundreds of millions of dollars, and he didn't own any of his masters. He didn't own his
Yeah, hundreds of millions of dollars for the company.
For the company.
Right.
And so, so as an artist who has a record deal, you will almost never, ever, ever own your own sound recordings. There's some exceptions to that, right? There's the Master P's of the world. There's some exceptions, right? People who came into the business and said, I don't want your money. I got a better idea. Here's what I'm gonna do. I think my stuff is so good, I'm going to license it to you. I'll give you the right to distribute what I own. And I will pay you for the privilege of distributing my music. Okay. I will not give you ownership over my creation. Now, this is not hypothetical. That's exactly what Master P did. I mean, they offered him millions of dollars. Keep your money. I got a better idea. Now, he took a risk. He bet on himself. That bet worked out. It worked out. And so what you are seeing is a movement afoot where artists are beginning to say, I need to own my own masters. Any deal I enter into with you, the record company, is a deal in which I will give you the opportunity. You will get a license to my masters. I will allow you to distribute it. I will allow you to do certain things, and I will allow you to get a certain fee to do what you do. But the ownership remains with me. You're seeing that more and more. I mean, the most recent of all the big battles really was Taylor Swift. I know Taylor Swift, she wanted her masters badly. She wanted a bat from Big Machine. She didn't get them. It didn't work out. Because, and you know why you can't get them back, right?
I'm sorry, say again?
I mean, you know why they don't want to give them back, right? That's where all the money is. No one who's getting free money. And when I say free money, I mean free money. So Eddie, imagine this. I hope I'm not going too much on a tangent.
No, please.
Imagine you buy a house. You go get a mortgage from the bank. You buy a house, the bank loans you the money for the house. Imagine you pay off that house, but then the bank still owns the house. You never own the house. You've paid it off, but the bank still owns the house. That would be absurd, right? It would be absurd if you think about it, if you were buying a house that way. Right. That's what we have accepted as the industry standard in the music industry.
Right, absolutely.
We've accepted that the record company gets to give you some advance, some piddly advance, let's call that a mortgage. You get to pay that mortgage back in full with interest over 20 years. Pay it back in full with interest. Let's say they loaned you $200,000 mortgage. You've paid back 10 million.
Okay, 10 million. Okay.
10 million if you're Taylor Swift,
right?
And not 10 million. Probably a lot more than that.
Wow.
If you're Taylor Swift, you've probably paid them back. Man, I wouldn't be surprised if she's generated 100 million. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. And they still own the house? Huh? Like, there's no other industry that would allow that. And so
I was just gonna say, sad to say, that is the music industry. That really is.
That's the music industry. No other industry would allow that.
And maybe I should correct that to where a record company is involved.
Yes.
Because as you kind of alluded to, things are different now. Because I mean, you can pretty much do it yourself. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and the way he put it, I love the way he put it, but he was being sarcastic, but it was like, he was right. He's like, well, as far as where we are now, you're on your own. Now, when you hear that, it's like, oh man, that's not a good thing. But in this case, it is a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, in this industry today. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially because, you know, everything's been kind of democratized,
Mm-hmm.
where you can create your own record, you can promote your record, you can put out your record. I mean, there's still, you know, I'm still going to say that there's something to be said for having the machine behind you, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
We're not going to pretend that Billie Eilish, who I love, who I love,
who burst onto the scene like, who is that?
Who I love, but I don't want to pretend that Billie Eilish on her own sat in her bedroom, came up with these brilliant songs, which she absolutely writes brilliant songs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then just magically the whole world knows who she is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to pretend that's true,
mm-hmm.
because I don't want to pretend that there was not a major label, which there was, that spent years of time and millions of dollars cultivating and creating the success that you see today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to pretend that anyone just sitting in their bedroom can be Billie Eilish just because you happen to be different.
Mm-hmm.
No, Billie Eilish has a huge machine behind
mm-hmm.
her that has invested. In fact, I was just looking at some numbers the other day about the investment in her and what the return will be and blah blah blah. You know, the record companies make a choice. We think we're going to invest in you because we're going to get our money back. So having the machine, if I told you it didn't matter, I'd be lying through my teeth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the machine that built Billie Eilish.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean her art, because she did that. She mm-hmm. created her art. She
right.
is a genius.
Right.
But the fact that the whole world knows about it,
mm-hmm.
she didn't do that part.
Uh-huh.
That part was done by one of the majors. I won't name, so I don't want to give him a shout out, but
mm-hmm.
that part she didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that machine behind you, man, if I pretend that doesn't matter, I'd be lying. That machine still matters.
Right.
That machine actually matters.
That makes sense. Like I said before, I mean, you know, when she won the Grammys and all that stuff, I remember I'm like, okay, I don't know who this is. But when she sang, it's like, I should know who this is. And I became a fan. I became an instant fan. Great stuff. But I mean, to your point, I mean, that's a very important point. I mean, the team behind you is, if not more important than you are, they're definitely as important as you are as the artist.
I agree.
You know, so.
I agree. 100%
mm-hmm.
as important.
Mm-hmm.
And,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nah, I'm not saying that.
No, please.
and you know, unfortunately, you know, we've also seen examples of people that had teams behind them that robbed them blind, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, hire people and then keep an eye on them. You know, don't hire someone and then say, oh, I got a manager, I got a lawyer, I don't have to think about my business anymore.
Mm-hmm. All the more reason you have to.
Now, I'm not saying that Billy Joel did that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's why his manager stole millions and millions of dollars from him. I'm not saying he just wasn't paying attention. I'm not saying that. I mean, I could literally rattle off the top of my head probably 10 huge artists who had members on their team steal tons of money.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, always watch your back, pay attention to your business, and watch your front too.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, because sometimes the people, you know, what did Oprah say? Always sign your own checks.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
Sign your own checks. Yeah.
I want to go back to when you were talking about copyrights. Can you explain like what the process is as far as like doing copyrights?
Yeah.
We had talked about like attorneys and all that. It's not as intimidating or as hard as you may think. I'd like to think the same thing as far as copyrights, but that is a very important step that you just mentioned. And since you've done it before, if you can explain what that step is that as hard as you might think?
It is really, really easy to do. Although I always tell people, I would advise, let me see if I can pull something up. So it's really, really easy to do. I of course do all my own copyrights, and I mean, it helps. I'm a lawyer.
You better.
I would, let's see. So So when you're getting started, so in the old days, it was all done on paper.
Mhm.
I have copyrights that I did on paper that have my handwriting.
Mhm.
That's not really how we do it anymore. Now it's all done
Mhm.
online. It's very, very easy.
You mean you didn't do the envelope and mail it to yourself and all that stuff? What?
No, I didn't do that.
How old are you again?
So if you go to the Copyright Office's website, if you just Google U.S. Copyright Office, it'll take you straight to the Federal Copyright and Trademark Registration page. You go right online, and it will literally walk you through step by step, because it's all online now. It's really, really easy. And
which means as soon as you fill out the form, it's copyrighted. As soon as you fill out and send it in, it's done.
So at least the application's done, and you'll have a receipt for your application, but it still has to be processed through the office.
See, that's why we talk to him. That's why. Don't listen to me. Listen to him.
And so if you go online and go to the Copyright Office, this is one of the things I'm really kind of proud of that the government got right, that they made it pretty easy to, well, first of all, you have to establish an account, which is free, doesn't cost anything with the Copyright Office. And I'm looking at it, I'm trying to think the easiest way to explain this is when you go to the U.S. Copyright Office's website, they're going to ask you some basic questions about what it is you're trying to protect. Is it a play? Is it a book? Is it a song? Is it a composition? Is it a sound recording? And in fact, it literally says, they actually separate them out on the website. I'm looking at it now, where it says musical composition, that's one thing. Sound recordings is something else.
Okay. So is it two different forms that you have to fill out per song?
Oh, and two different types of copyrights. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, two different types of copyrights. Different copyright for the composition, different copyright for the sound recording. Totally different, two different types of copyrights.
So I'm sorry. So if you're writing a song, okay, you do a copyright for that. If you're going to record, or if you have a recording, you do a copyright for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the song that you wrote, we call that the composition. We call that the composition. The song that you recorded, that's the sound recording.
Got it. Okay.
Right. And so and they're separate. They are separate. You'll see them if you go to the website. You'll see you can copyright books, performing arts and screenplays, photography. You'll see a separate section for musical compositions, a separate section for sound recordings. And so for recording artists, those are the two you care about, is the composition, which is what you wrote, and the sound recording, which is what you recorded. And sometimes you're not the person performing your songs. Sometimes you're only copywriting the composition because you wrote a song where someone else is going to sing it.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Like the song that I wrote for the soundtrack. I'm not going to copyright that sound recording. I won't own that. That's not mine. The sound recording is not mine. The composition is.
Right.
So I'll copyright the composition, and then I'm going to send that through, and then that's interesting because it involves not a record company, but a movie studio. It's a little bit different. And when you're dealing with movie studios, you're licensing something called a sync license, and so that's a little different. But you got the right idea on how to protect yourself. Is when you write a song, you've written a composition. You want to copyright your composition. Your copyright of that composition has a bundle of rights attached to it. If you have a song that you recorded, that's a sound recording. That also has a bundle of rights that come with it. So.
Okay.
And the forms are very easy to fill out. But I still advise that if you, those are the kind of things that, if you go to the website, I think it's kind of self-explanatory.
Self-explanatory, okay.
I think it's self-explanatory, but an attorney can do it for you so easily for not much cost at all. Really, really easy.
Got it.
Things that don't take a lot of time and that are really easy, and lawyers don't charge much for that.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So if you go to a lawyer and say, "Hey, I really want this song copyrighted," then you can do that like that.
That's interesting too, because I've always that you mentioned that I've always been the mind of I'd much rather pay not to worry about it.
Yes.
So and I mean there are plenty of those things like you said. We're trying to cut corners and all that stuff. We're trying to save money. and all that. And, you know, but then especially I know with me, and I mentioned jokingly my OCD, I would be thinking like, oh man, what did I do wrong? Did I get it right? Did I get it right? And you're stuck with worrying about that. So like I said, I'd much rather pay the cost and not have to worry about it.
That's
You know?
exactly right. Because, you know, 100% of nothing
Yeah, boy. Mm.
is nothing.
Spoken like a true musician.
Is nothing. So, and I'll tell you, I'm, you know, the only reluctance I have. So, you know, because, you know, I'm not allowed to give legal advice, and it's a very fine line. It's the only reason why I don't literally just pull out a form and walk you through how to fill it out. I mean, it's not hard to do. It's not hard at all, you know, for me to whip out a form and say, look, here's what you do. You have a song, you pull out this form, here's what it says, here's what you do on the first box. There's nothing hard about it.
Got it.
But I don't want to, I got to
Understood.
make sure I don't cross that line.
Understood, totally. And thank you for that too. As far as, let's see, I have my notes here. Songs being used with or without permission. Is that a thing? Like I wrote a song, somebody takes the song and they use it. Is that person allowed to use that song without letting me know?
No.
Oh,
No.
okay.
No. So that's what I was saying.
And a lot of us have run across that, where all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, nobody called me or whatever, and there are monies involved, you know, depending on, you know.
No. So that's what a copyright is. It's so when you write a song and you are the copyright owner, when you write a song and that song is fixed and you own that copyright, it's yours. That's like saying, can somebody just come and take my dog and walk them without my permission? No. You get whooped for that. Like, no. You can't come grab my dog and take him. It's the same way. My copyright is my thing. Just because it exists in the esoteric universe doesn't make it any less of a thing, right? So when I own a composition, that's my thing. You bet not think about using my composition without my permission, or we're gonna fight. It's gonna cost you. It's gonna cost you. And if it's my song, like a Switch record where we own the sound recording, you're not gonna use our sound recording without our permission. And in the world of permission, in the music, in the world of law, we call that licenses. We call that licenses. And so, no. So you should not, now here's the other thing is, so with copyright law, the thing about copyright law and patent law and trademark law is you have to actively enforce your rights. You know, you can lose them if you don't enforce them. I always try to use other examples to help people understand. Like imagine you own a house. Do you know what adverse possession is? Where someone tries to come and they own, let's say you own 10 houses and you got a house in LA. You ain't been in a house in 20 years. Come to find out, somebody else moved into your house 20 years ago without you knowing. They've been in there squatting for 7 years.
I was just gonna say, isn't that what a squatter is?
Yeah, they didn't squat. Well, they're a squatter until they own it, and until they acquire it, what we call adverse possession. Until they acquire it through adverse possession, they're a squatter until they're not. And so, copyrights and trademarks are very, very similar, where you actually have to enforce your rights, or you can lose them. So you got to be very careful if everybody and their mama has been stealing your stuff for 20 years, and all of a sudden after 20 years you decide, oh, I think I want to enforce that. You're gonna run into some problems. You're gonna run into some problems. So copyrights are protected vigorously, man. I mean, vigorously. You want to talk about? I mean, vigorously, right? If you want to see how quickly they're enforced, I want you to, without permission, use Thriller or Purple Rain as the theme music for your show. You want to see how fast? You want to see how fast? You want to see how fast copyrights are enforced? Boy, you'll get a letter before you air it.
And just the very thought, the letter is right there. Like, wait a minute, I was just, You're right.
That cease and desist letter will be at your house before you even. No, it's big because honestly, that's where the money is. Music industry is cool because for the average American, you go to work every day, you get paid for the work you put in.
Okay, I just got to say this too, because I've noticed that with like a few of my guests. It's like whatever subject we're going to go to, that was actually my next question.
Oh.
Different ways to be paid in the music industry.
Oh, you're right. We were going right there.
You just totally went there. So thank you. So we're on the same page for sure.
Yeah, like so the average Joe goes to work, they make their money, they come home, they spend the money, money's gone, work's done, that's that. The music industry, well, all the arts are so unique because they're the gift that keep on giving. You're not just putting in work for 8 hours, you're actually creating something. You're creating an ownership interest that has value forever. And so there are so many ways to make money in the music industry. So, how many people are songwriters where you wrote a song and your song, it had a moment, and you made money performing, right? You were out there performing and you made some money out there performing, but then it was played on the radio and you made performance royalties for being on the radio. And then you sold some records. And so you made some mechanical royalties because you sold some records. And then your song was, it was in a movie at the time. And so you got some money from the sync license. And then here you are 20 years later, and all of a sudden some new artist, they use the song in one of their songs.
There you go.
They sample it. And they sample it. And that's your voice, that's your writing. And a lot of times, so I will say that with a lot of older records, artists weren't as sophisticated as they were today. And so record companies like took everything, right? I mean, record companies just robbed a lot of acts where they did not just own the sound recording, but a lot of those guys managed to end up owning basically the copyrights too. They were able to, gosh, now here I can't say any names because I don't want to get in trouble, but there's some people out there who are great artists, right? Just took all their copyrights. I mean, just raped it. And so, but that song gets sampled today, and all of a sudden you're getting checks. Like, wait, what? That's so cool. Like something I created 20 years ago. So I talked earlier about copyrights and how those rights have bundles. And so it's a really, really cool thing today. It's so cool today because first of all, there's a lot more money in the industry today, right?
Okay.
So everyone out there who believes that Napster killed the record industry, it's just not true.
Good point. Great point.
It's not true. The reality is the record companies probably never imagined in their wildest dreams that one day millions of Americans, and they won't disclose their exact numbers, right? I don't know if it's 30 million or 60 million, or I don't know if they ever thought that the day would come that tens of millions of Americans, Chinese citizens, South American citizens in Mexico and in Brazil, in Africa, all these places would all be paying $10 a month for access to music. They're paying $10 a month. So whether you buy an album or not, you just bought an album. So
there you go. Exactly.
Tens of millions.
$10 a month, but individually you're thinking, no, that's not a lot of money. Multiply that by the population. and come on.
Every month, Apple, Spotify, Tidal, every month, $10 a month, every month from 60 million people, every month. So the record companies are making more money now than they know what to do with it. I mean, they're printing money. They have a printing press in the back, and they're just like printing out the money. And
let me ask you there though. Then I mean, because like you said, the record companies are the record companies. I mean, I know like today it's more the artist the artist it's more geared to the artist than it was before.
Way,
You know,
way
it's
better.
more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's more
Artist friendly. You can say artist friendly.
yeah. Okay, it's artist friendly as opposed to the way it was before. The record companies back in the day, there were like tons of record companies all over the place, huge record companies, and as you alluded to earlier, I mean, they pretty much owned you. You know, they owned you, they owned everything that you owned. You know, today it's not so much like that. Or are there still like a lot of record companies, or are they just under the guise of, you know, we're in sheep? Are they a sheep in wool? Are they wolf in the sheep's clothing? Did I get that right?
Oh man, there's only 3 majors today. So
okay.
So we are no longer in the day when the record industry is not deregulated, right? Those days when there were multiple really substantial record companies. Those days are over. In terms of the industry's been greatly consolidated. There's only 3 big giant titans in town.
Wow. Only 3.
Now there are a lot of, I mean, the other flip side is there's a lot of people that can release their music now and they do it without a record company at all. Because you can do that, right? Through TuneCore, through Songtrust. I mean, there's ways now to put out a record on your own, right? And distribute it where people can buy it. Like I could not 20 years ago on my own Akili Nickson music without any money and have my record distributed in every Tower Records in America. Just couldn't do that. But today, people, if they get their music on Apple Music, I can today for almost no money get my song on Apple Music today, where people can go to the store and buy it, or Spotify, or I mean, I can do that today, right? But in terms of the record companies, there's just 3 big games in town right now. But I wanted to say that I don't think there's ever been a better time to be an artist, really. There's just never been a better time, because before there were just, you had to go through gatekeepers to make music at a professional level, right? If someone else didn't believe in you enough to put you in their recording studio that had $1 million worth of equipment in it, you actually could not record a record in the old days. Today, those gatekeepers are gone. Today, you can make a record quality recording, right? A radio quality recording at home, right?
That's
I
true.
can do it with a computer, Logic Pro, good mic, good preamp. I mean, I can do that at home now. I can make a radio quality record at home, and I can get that record where it's accessible to the whole world to buy. I can do that now. Now the whole world may not know about it. Heck, nobody will know about it except you and your friends. But the gatekeepers are kind of gone now. Good and bad. That's good and bad. Where in the old days, I don't know how many records came out every week. The record companies would release new music on like Tuesday. So many would come out a week. Where today, I mean, it's an ocean of people that can record an album at home and release it from their living room. And so how do you stand out in that ocean of music? You know, that's another show for another day. But as an artist there, and as a writer, because I'm both, there's just so many ways, so many opportunities to make money in the industry. Because like I said, those rights we were talking about, when you write a song and record a song and you own all those rights, you own those rights. When that song gets played, you know, on YouTube, you know, there's a license fee that comes with that. When your song is being listened to on Spotify, there are fees that come with that. When your song is downloaded on Apple Music, you get paid for that. If you're, I mean, so in today's world, when you write a song, there are, or you sing a song, it is, there are so many ways for an artist to actually put it in front of the world to make money. Again, the world may not know who you are, but there are so many ways, you know, to get it in front of the world. And you just couldn't do that 20 years ago. I couldn't 20 years ago make a record in my garage and say, yeah, go get it at Tower Records.
Got you.
Go pick it up at Target. It's in Target. 20 years ago, You couldn't distribute a record yourself. Today you
Got
can.
it. And final question, since you just kind of touched upon that, is there I hate to use this term, but I'll go ahead and use it. Is there like a one-stop shop where, like you said, where you talk about you can get paid through like a YouTube, or you can get paid through Apple? How do you make sure that you, if there is money to be made, that you're making it through like those avenues? Do you go to them individually? Is there like a one-stop place? I mean,
That's
how
such a
does
good
that work?
question. That is such a good question. So that is the best question ever, Eddie. So one day when you have sponsors for your show, we will be able to plug some of the ways that are really easy for artists to do this. I'm not in the business of giving free plugs, but I will say this. The answer is yes.
Okay.
You don't need a record company to do that today.
Okay.
Today, you can hire a third-party service so that when you put your music on iTunes, when someone downloads it, you get your cut.
Mm-hmm.
You get their cut, you get your cut. When your song, someone's playing it on YouTube, YouTube gets their cut, you get your cut.
Mm-hmm.
When your song is, and there's different types of terrestrial radio, there's like radio where you're in your car listening. When your song is played, and there's performance royalties every time it's played on the radio, you get your cut, right? Traditionally, I will say those performance royalties, the major organizations are still who they are, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, that hasn't changed. But it's a little different now because now people are using, Pandora, which you can't really control what you listen to, and that's kind of one way to get paid. I won't really get into that. Versus a Spotify where you can pick the song you want to listen to, and that's a different way. That's interactive, internet. That's a different way to get paid. I will say the answer is yes, that you can very, very easily set yourself up so that when there are royalties coming from these different sources, they are all coming to you.
Nice. Okay.
There are various services that exist to do that. And when they sponsor your show, we'll plug them. When they sponsor your show, we'll plug the service that I would recommend for making sure you're getting all your performance royalties. There's a service I would use to make sure you're getting all your mechanical royalties, right? From like a Pandora, a non-interactive internet station. There's to make sure you're getting all the money you should get from YouTube, to make sure there are services that for I think, reasonable fee will make sure that you get all the money you are entitled to. And they'll give, you can get an accounting, see what you're owed, see what money they're supposed to get you, move that money directly to your bank account. It is very easy to do, but they don't get free plugs until they sponsor your show.
I love it.
When they sponsor your show, we'll plug those services, but those services exist. You can absolutely do it on your own and have agreements with just a few key services to make sure all them checks come straight to your house.
Got it.
Yes, easy to do.
Akili Nickson. Hey, is it okay for you to do your own plug here? I mean, can you do that in lieu of? I mean, like because of what you do. Like I said, what I call your day job. Can you tell us how we can find out what you're doing, whether it be that or switch? Like I said, how do we find out all things Akili Nickson?
I am not. See, look, I don't have it together, man. Like I don't have it together.
This is a lawyer talking. Do you hear this?
I don't have it together. Like when I look at Philip, man, Philip Ingram has it together.
Tell me about it.
The website, the music, I don't have none of that. I don't have any of that. I don't have any of it.
I guess in some cases that's probably a good thing for you, right?
I'm just a low-key lawyer, singer, enjoying life. I don't have what Philip has. I wish I did, man.
With a wealth of knowledge, man. And man, first of all, I can't thank you enough for you sharing that even just that little bit with us. I really appreciate that.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Eddie. I say I've been lucky enough that we've been able to do. I've been on I've been on the Switch ride for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
and being able to sing with you and
Oh,
sing
man.
the Switch has been the highlight of my life. I want all the fans to know I was one of those guys that, man, I was such a big Switch fan. And and back then, Eddie, you know, you had a lot more hair.
Boy, you snuck that one in, didn't you? I used to refer to that as 50 pounds of hair ago. So, oh yeah, I had 50 pounds of hair ago.
And the cool thing is every member of the group was so identifiable individually. Like every fan knew every member of the group.
Mm-hmm.
And as I sit here today, the fact that you and I are such close friends and such close brothers, it is truly a life that's good. I tell you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And then, like I said, I mean, you know, excellent singer, excellent musician. But again, I mean, the daytime job always gets me. It's like, man, but you guys don't know him. You don't know. And literally, I mean, what the world sees of you is brief by comparison. You know, he comes on and he does his show and all that stuff, and needless to say, blows the audience away. And then Monday he's back doing like that other thing that's like, oh my God. So and again, and we didn't even talk about, I'm a huge fan of NASA, by the way. Huge fan of NASA, right? We didn't even talk about that part.
No.
that you know, you had like a little thing with, you were in with NASA for a little bit.
Yeah. I've had a very, very interesting career. I did. I worked at the chief counsel's office at NASA for a while. I was at NASA for 6 years.
And for those looking at Akili now, what are you, like 12?
Yeah, that was good.
Man.
Run. I like, yeah.
Awesome. Well, again, Akili Nickson, thank you so much, Eddie, for doing this for me.
Fun,
I really appreciate it. Awesome. And
all right,
for those that are watching, Akili Nickson, again, thank you so much for being on the playground, and thank you all for watching. I hope you got some information from this. Like, this is a master class on the music industry. I hope you got it. So again, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Eddie. All right, brother.
All right.